During the Korean War, the United Nations put together a force to support the South. One of those countries was the Philippines. Some serious warriors. In April of '51, the 10th Battalion Combat Team was manning the line near Yultong, just in time for the Chinese spring offensive. The 900 Filipino soldiers were hit head-on by a Chinese regiment, outnumbered upwards of 4-1, but they held. The fighting raged through the night. Attacks, counterattacks, and devolved into hand-to-hand combat. As the fighting died down, the 10th remained, and at a cost of 12 Filipino soldiers, they'd inflicted heavy damage, with over 500 dead enemy soldiers scattered across the battlefield.
Of how Filipino troops braved a sea of Chinese soldiers during the Korean War. The Korean War began on June 25, 1950, when North Korea, backed by China and the Soviet Union, crossed the border into South Korea in an attempt to capture its capital, Seoul. In response, the United Nations Security Council, through the formation of the United Nations Command, ordered the deployment of military forces to stop the invasion. On August 7, 1950, President Elpidio Quirino, with approval from Congress, sent 7,420 Filipino combat troops to fight in South Korea. We saw this as a commitment to help a friend and as part of a larger battle to save the world from communism. The 10th Battalion Combat Team of the Philippine Expeditionary Forces to Korea was the first battalion to arrive on Busan shores on September 19, 1950. The 10th Battalion, made up of 1,303 enlisted men and 64 officers, was originally a motorized battalion sent to operate tanks from the US, but when none arrived, was turned into a heavy weaponry unit instead. On the night of April 22, the 10th Battalion, as part of the US 65th Infantry Regiment of the US 3rd Infantry Division, was attacked north of Yeoncheon by a large force of Chinese and North Korean soldiers. This would be known in history as the Great Spring Offensive, one of the largest offensives by the 44th Division of the Chinese People's Volunteer Army and the Communist North Korean Army during the Korean War. In front of the Filipinos were 4 Chinese divisions numbering 40,000 men. Just after midnight, the Chinese began their attack with a heavy artillery barrage. Soon after, the Chinese forces advanced, but had difficulty as the 10th Battalion successfully defended their positions with mortar and artillery.
Nice.
However, a massive Chinese assault pushed the Turkish brigade from their position, allowing the Chinese to surround the Filipinos' eastern side. Seeing the incoming danger, Lieutenant Colonel Junicio Ojeda immediately organized a unit of battalion cooks and clerks. With the help of M24 light tanks and artillery support, Lieutenant Colonel Ojeda's makeshift unit was able to hold off the advancing Chinese forces.
What?
The situation only got worse when the Puerto Rican 65th Infantry Regiment, situated on the west flank, began to fall back from Chinese attack. With the west flank now exposed, the Chinese began advancing but were blocked by a platoon of Filipino soldiers situated on a hill overlooking Yultong. Commanded by Lieutenant Jose Arciaga, this platoon refused to yield and held their ground. This gave Lieutenant Arciaga's company commander, Captain Conrado Yap, enough time to mount a counterattack. The counterattack successfully extracted the trapped platoon from the hill and